What's going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday. So, today I want to talk about a company that I just recently initiated a position in, and that company is Uber, stock ticker UBER. Uber went public at around $40 per share. It's currently trading at around $43 with a 52-week high of 45 and a 52-week low of 36. Uber has what doesn't have a P ratio right now because, as you all know, they're not currently profitable. And what that means is, while they're making a lot of money on people like you and me ordering Ubers and going to parties or going to the beach or going to various different places, when they dish out money to drivers, when they spend money on research and development, when they try to acquire new customers in new cities or new countries, the money they spend doing that is more than the amount that they bring in from the people who are riding with Uber. But again, they're doing that to continue to grow the business. They're doing that to continue to expand across the globe. So, as an investor, while that should concern you, as long as you see that they are using the money that they make for research and development, we're okay with not having a positive P ratio at the moment. With that said, Uber still is an expensive stock with a $72 billion valuation. To put that into perspective, Starbucks is a $77 billion market cap company. Another 70 billion market cap would be something like Walgreens. I think even Lowe's is like 80 billion. So it's around the range of a lot of really well-run, well-established companies that are currently in the United States today that actually make money, while Uber is not profitable. With that said, Uber is one of those new companies very similar to Facebook that has a business model that's a lot different than companies like Starbucks and Lowe's that are your classic brick and mortar. So let's check out Uber to try to figure out what Uber is really worth. Because at the end of the day, the market is a weighing machine, not a voting machine. And in the long term, if you're a long-term investor, we will find out what Uber is worth as they progress as a company. So real quick, let's just go to some general facts about Uber. So Uber is the number one ride-sharing service in the world. They operate in 60 countries and 400 cities. So they're all over the place. Versus Lyft, the competition Lyft is just based in the United States. They're focused on targeting just the United States alone, whereas Lyft and Uber, and just speaking from personal experience, I actually drive Uber myself, and I drive Uber in Miami Beach. I've picked up a lot of international people from Saudi Arabia, from Russia, from Asia, from China, from all over the world, and they all use Uber. They trust Uber. Imagine going to another country and you just call a random Uber, hop in, and you feel really safe doing that. The fact that people trust Uber to that extreme in another country really says something about the brand. So you have that, and then you have Uber being a multi-dimensional transportation company. And the way I see Uber is, it's not just a ride-hailing service. It's a transportation company. When you need to get somewhere, when you need to get something somewhere, you call Uber. Again, I'll draw on my experience as an Uber driver. I had a woman bake a cake, and instead of taking the Uber herself, she put the cake in my car to be delivered, and I went ahead and delivered the cake for her at some birthday party on South Beach, and she was really comfortable, almost too comfortable, putting that cake in my car. So again, we're in the early stages of Uber being a transportation company, getting things from point A to point B, but Uber has already moved into Uber Eats. If you ever ordered food online, you might have done it through Uber Eats. And then they also have Uber Freight. So imagine if you're a company like Walmart and you need to get some plantains from California and get them to your locations in South Carolina and North Carolina. What you could do is, when a driver gets from California to North Carolina, they can get on the Uber Freight app, and they can find something to take back with them to California instead of just going back on that trip empty-handed and losing a lot of money on that gas. So Uber's solving multiple problems, actually 3 different problems right here, as far as transportation, food delivery, and freight truck delivery. Okay, cool. So they have a lot of room for growth, and actually I would argue that Uber Freight could be the hidden gem for this company, and that this company alone, an Uber freight style company alone, could be its own private company independent of Uber. But because Uber's working on this as a joint venture, it really increases the opportunity for growth. So finally, you look at the facts, and then we go back to this question, because at the end of the day, this is how we're going to determine if we should invest in Uber. What is Uber really worth? The market is telling us that it's worth $72 billion. When Facebook went public in 2007 or 2008, they went public at $100 billion. Facebook's now worth $500 billion because they have all our data, but I'll get into that later. And you could also argue, before I get off that topic, that Uber has a lot of our data as well. They have our travel habits. They know where people are calling a lot of Ubers from. They know where you specifically call all of your Ubers from and where you like to go. They're tracking all that information, and that could be very useful for an autonomous fleet in the future if we get to that point, which I personally think we will, but that's still a little ways down the road. But again, so that's the question. What is Uber really worth? So the one thing that I like to point out is Lyft does a lot of promotions to try to get people to ride with Lyft, and Lyft loses a lot more money than Uber. And the reason for this is because Lyft, to attract customers, they give out a lot of promotions like saying, hey, invite some of your friends and you get X amount of rides free, or hey, it's a rainy day, here's a free ride. So of course, in the short term, this is going to hurt Uber's profit margin, but in the long term, this isn't going to be sustainable for Lyft or Uber, and so something's going to have to change there. So that's the first problem that I think will get resolved as time plays out. And then the second thing I don't think anyone has brought up yet, so I'm really excited about this, is the advertising, okay? Think about this. You're driving in the Uber car. The Uber driver has their phone there. Maybe we switch this phone to like a small iPad or tablet, and while you're riding in the back seat, there's an advertisement playing in the car. Very similar to how when we first used Facebook at 100 billion, Uber's at 72 billion, there were no ads on Facebook, maybe on the side margins, but some of that was being run by Google. It wasn't Facebook and all those ads on Instagram. There were no ads on Instagram, but now every third or fourth picture is an advertisement. So I can't imagine that Uber at some point couldn't find a way to advertise to you while you're in the car. I mean, you can already track where you're going. I know some people, when I drive, they love to just stare at the phone and make sure I'm hitting every turn, and then call me out when I miss a turn, or something of that nature. So if you got people's eyes on the phone, you can get a lot of money from advertising. And I think more and more people are going to start to use Uber as people feel more comfortable doing that. So that's one avenue that I don't think the market has even realized is a possibility yet. But that's huge. So you have that, and then you have the scale. So ask yourself this question. If you wanted to start Uber, you wanted to start your own Uber company, how much money would you need to spend to do that? You would have to get drivers. You'd have to get riders to trust the service. You would have to do background checks on all of those drivers. You probably would have to do some sort of verification on the riders as well, so that you protect your drivers. And then you would have to scale out on cities. You'd have to advertise. You would have to create some sort of payment system. You have to hit up our friends Visa and MasterCard and be like, hey, can you help us process the credit card transactions? We got to get paid. We got to pay drivers. You have all these costs that are building up, and Uber is still going to be making money while you build this out. So Uber already has the scale, again, 60 countries, 400 cities, and growing. So when you think about the amount of effort you would have to put in to scale to the size that Uber is, again, maybe this isn't worth 72 billion, or maybe it is. Again, time will tell. So we have this, and then you have the brand recognition. And the analogy I always use when I always think about investing in Uber is like, bruh, did you call the Uber? So point being that Uber is just ingrained in our system, especially in millennials, Gen Z. If we need to go somewhere, your first response is going to be to call Uber. If you're inebriated, if you're blackout drunk, so excuse my language, but if you're just, you're in trouble, you're concerned, and you want to get out and go home, you're going to turn to Uber. And that's really something that is special and really a value that's added to society that I don't think is justified in the current price. So cool. Just to wrap things up, there was a lot of uncertainty when Uber first IPO'd because of this P ratio and just the fact that the company is not profitable. But the more I started to think about Uber and how valuable this is and how much this has changed our world, it was almost a no-brainer to me that, I mean, on the low end, this company's not going to go out of business. I mean, people are in the foreseeable future, in the next 5 years, 10 years, I mean, even 20 years, people are still going to use Uber unless we just start teleporting magically. We have to, get somewhere. We have to drive on roads. So people always try to knock Tesla, saying that EV cars are not going to exist anytime soon. So if you use that logic, we're going to be in cars for a minute, and Uber is going to be one of the ways we get around. So I hope that kind of clears everything up and gives you some perspective on why I'm personally invested in Uber. As always, you should not buy or sell stock based solely off what you hear on this page. At the end of the day, this is for educational and entertainment purposes only. And as always, Godspeed.